Well, hey, we can begin. I am horrible at technical stuff, Amanda. So I was joking with your husband, like, great, I'm going to do a Zoom interview with the guy who makes a living on YouTube TV. And hello, Stephen and Amanda Miller. And I first met you, Stephen. You were leading worship up in Dallas.
Yep.
And I drove up there. I was doing something else, and I'm like, "Can we hang out?" And
I need In-N-Out. That's what you're like. You're like, I really don't care. Just go to In-N-Out.
I'm like, I need somebody to go to In-N-Out Burger with me, and so you joined me. And
this is great.
And so then you moved to San Antonio.
Yeah.
And that's where I thought you guys were. And then I see some post, Amanda, and I'm like, I think you were in the car. Either maybe you saw the post.
I was like, Nashville, wait, what?
Or you're moving to Nashville. I'm like, wait, what? So I immediately just go, call Stephen Miller, and you answer. And I'm like, what's going on? Yeah. So these are our this amazing family have 7, right? Am I getting it right? 7? Sure. Yeah. And just made a move to Nashville, and we're going to link to all their media. Their lives are so inspirational. Mm-hmm. And I know Janna had some questions for Amanda just about how did this all begin with the family like that? And
well, yeah. So San Antonio, and now you guys have moved to Nashville, which is where we lived for 13 years.
Mm-hmm. Where we met.
Yeah, where we met, married, had 2 kids. So how did your family expand the way it has, and how did you make it to Nashville and now YouTube? And it's just crazy. And you're by the way. I don't know if you've been told that today, but wow, amazing.
That's so kind of you. Yeah, it's a long story, but adoption was something that Stephen and I talked about before we were even married. It was something that we knew that someday we would probably do, and so we had our 2 daughters biologically, and when they were about 6 and 4, that's when we decided to start praying about adopting and educating ourselves. And we were making a lot of phone calls to different agencies, and everyone was just saying, like, have you considered Ethiopia? There's just such a need right now. The AIDS epidemic had just ravaged the country, and so they were saying that the orphanages were turning children away because there just wasn't enough room. And so that is really where our story began, and we ended up adopting our sons Jude and Liam from Ethiopia, and it's almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah, it'll be 10 years in July, so it's been a while.
And are they biological brothers?
Yes, yeah, and they were 5 and 3 whenever we adopted them. So Jude will turn 15 in August, which is crazy, and Liam turns 13 in March.
Yeah, we have 4 teenagers, almost 5 teenagers at this point. So
it's
that's
crazy.
A little, it's fun but crazy. So.
Did you have to travel to Ethiopia? Did you have to go and stay for a while? How did that work?
Twice, we went twice. So we went for a week each time. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because, your first trip, they're your children. Like, you go to the court, and in Ethiopia, you're their parents legally, but you have to come back home and leave your kids in Ethiopia and wait for the U.S. to kind of catch up to that process. So we had to wait about 2.5 months, right? Yeah. Almost 3 months before the U.S. said, okay, cool, we're good to go. You can go and finalize the adoption. So we went in July and brought him home.
And really, honestly, when we were in Ethiopia, I remember just having this sense that we would probably adopt again. Like, there was just something that God was doing in our hearts, just seeing the need and just falling in love with our kids, falling in love with their birth culture, and just knowing, like, this is probably going to be something God does again in our family. And so, so then we ended up having our son, Ethan, biologically.
She came and was like,
later.
Am I crazy that I want to have another kid? And I'm like, no, you're an amazing mom. Let's go for it. So
that was quite a process, because I ended up having a lot of health issues, but then he was born a couple of years later. And then a couple of years after that, I was like, I just feel like maybe the Lord is calling us to adopt again. And so we prayed about that and felt like it was the right timing, and just he was confirming it so many different ways. And so
It's funny because the first time we were adopting, like it took me a while because I kind of thought, oh, we have 2 kids, like we're good to go, you know? And then God really slowly sort of got a hold of my heart as it related to that. And because I grew up pretty poor, and I wanted to make sure that I provided the life for my kids that I never got to have. And it's sort of stereotypical thing, right? But God really broke me in that and just showed me his passion for the nations. So it was funny because this time around, she's like, I think we're supposed to adopt again. I'm like, sweet. We've got one more seat in the Suburban. We've got room in our house. Let's go for it. One more seat in the Suburban. Yeah. And so we're like 6 months down the line adopting Penelope. We saw her profile and like fell in love immediately. Knew she was going to be our daughter.
We're doing a lot of educating ourselves on older child adoption because there is such a need, and
special needs.
Yeah, even just children that are older are considered special needs in the sense that most people don't adopt older kids, and so they're just on these waiting lists for no reason except for that they're older. And so we wanted to really educate ourselves on what that process would look like, and if God was calling us to that, and really felt like he was. And so we started that process. And about halfway through that process, I told Stephen, I was like, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I feel like we're supposed to bring home 2 children from China as well. And
I said, I'm not hearing the Lord on that. So
he was like,
I'm going to
I don't know.
Pray about that. And like a month goes by and I'm like, still not hearing the Lord. Here's what I know. He's the father to the fatherless. He puts orphans in homes. So we'll start the process. We'll see if our agency thinks that we can go for it, then China's going to have to say that we can go for it, both of which are pretty slim chances, right? So we asked our agency and they're like, well, we're pretty sure you're insane. So take this mental health test. And
they actually did have us take some tests and things just to make sure that we would be equipped to bring home 2 children, especially having a large family.
And we passed. Like they were like, okay, cool. We are approving you. That's awesome. China does not like to do concurrent adoptions. So good luck with that. But we're going to ask them. And if they say yes, then you'll be approved. And China said yes. So we were kind of like, it was almost like Jonathan saying, let's go up to those uncircumcised Philistines and see, maybe the Lord will let us win, maybe. And we kind of were saying that, like, we know God loves adoption. I mean, obviously there's pain and brokenness that comes along with that, but God puts the orphans in homes. And so he's, we want to be part of that and be part of his heart for that. Like, so maybe he'll let us,
if it's not meant to be, the Lord will close the door. But if this stirring is from him, we know he'll open the door. And he did. And so we brought home our daughter Penelope and our son Lincoln 3 years ago now. And it's been an incredible ride.
Roller coaster.
Yes, for sure. But it's just been amazing to see the way that the Lord has worked in our family and knit our hearts together and grown our faith, and our kids are so close and closely knit. It's just, it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
So wow, that's so inspiring and so amazing. I mean, just from one mom to the next, to another, I'm just blown away. What would you say to a family that is considering adoption of any kind? Is there any, like, one thing you would go, hey, if I was starting this process tomorrow all over again, this is what I would say?
I would say that it's certainly not an easy process. You need to be prepared that there are going to be ups and downs for sure. But that hard doesn't mean bad. And that there's a lot of scary moments. There's a lot of things that you're going to come up against that just honestly might be very, very scary. But the Lord works through those things and in those things. And even in those hard moments, he's growing you and he's growing your faith and he's strengthening your family. And so don't be afraid just because it can be hard or it can be scary. A lot of times, that first step is just stepping out in faith because there's so many unknowns. There's so many what ifs, right? That's one of the things that we hear the most is that there's just a lot of fear starting out, a lot of questions. What is this going to look like and what's going to happen? And so I would just say, don't let the fear keep you from taking that step of faith.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Do you feel like, are you, Amanda, like Janna is the researcher in our family. It kind of sounds like the same, like Amanda had this thing and then Stephen got it, like Janna would come to me and go, you know, I've been researching blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? Oh, okay. Is that kind of, are you like the researcher then, Amanda? And then, am I reading it?
I'm always like sharing articles and things. Do you know what I just read? And like, yeah, totally. Yeah.
You know,
Sometimes Greg appreciates them, and sometimes he's like, I didn't really need to know that. But thank you.
Yeah.
Amanda will say, did you read that thing I sent you yesterday? And I go, which thing? There were 30 things.
Yeah, definitely very, very much the same for us.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Living your life now, because this has become quite a sensation. And as I showed you, as I took a snapshot the other day, Steve, I think I posted it. We've got you on our, you know, our 65-inch television in the living room, and we're watching your family. Our family's watching your family. What was it like as parents, you know, going, okay, now we're going to live our lives in the public eye? Was that you know, thankfully, like we've got our friend, the guy who owns the record label that Avalon is on, Jay DeMarcus from Rascal Flatts. They have a reality show. They had zero control over content. So
Yeah.
and that's different. You have at least some control of what you put out. But that Janna right away was like, oh no, I would not do that. I'd give up control of the content, you know. And
Right.
Yeah.
but still, your guys' lives, you know, like we think about that trip with you, the motorhome, and you're all piled in there in your head. Was it to the Grand Canyon? But just your everyday lives being in public, what has that been like? I know a lot of people, our lives have changed so much with the selfie thing. We all get it. We all show we're doing. You guys it's a lot deeper than that now. How has that been? Has that been an adjustment, I guess?
I would say it's definitely been an adjustment, but early on, I think, well, it was pretty scary for me, honestly. And we have very, very different personalities. So Steven's like super extroverted. I'm very introverted. I am more private. And so when I felt like we were supposed to start this and we were supposed to kind of share our story a little bit more publicly, it was honestly very scary for me.
Yeah.
And it was something I fought for about an entire year or so. We talked about it and I was like, I just don't know. That sounds so scary. Just to kind of put yourself out there and, you know, then everybody can just critique your family, you know, and it can be nerve-wracking. And so we really prayed about it for a long time beforehand. And like you said, there is a lot of control over what we share, and our cameras are not going 24/7. We film, usually about 3 times a week, and it'll be a couple of hours a day. And we made this really hard, fast rule early on that we would do this in a way that honored our children, that still gave them the privacy that they wanted. If there's a time that they didn't want to film or there's something that they wanted to keep private, that we absolutely did.
We don't want them to ever come back later on and be like, dang, mom and dad, like, I really wish you hadn't put that out there for the whole world. Right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we have a couple of rules in that, number one, we'll never do fake drama or clickbait. So, we want our lives to be a living representation of the gospel, and go figure, like, I've been in ministry for 15 years, and most of the time when you're on the stage, people don't really get to see how that plays out in real life. Like you can talk about Jesus and the gospel and what you believe and all that all day long from the platform, but where the rubber meets the road, how does the pastor's life really look, So we were like, man, we never want to make Jesus look bad with our family, number one. So like, no baiting people, no breaking trust with them, no, dishonoring our kids or making them seem, speaking of, he's hungry.
We could get some of that, right?
Yeah. And then, if they don't want to film, they don't have to film that day. There's all kinds of just stuff that we try to.
But just wanting our channel to be a place of encouragement and a place where people can come and even if we're not necessarily like explicitly telling people the gospel in every single video, that they can look at our family and they can see that there's joy and there's peace from the Lord, and that they can just watch a picture of it. And obviously that's imperfect, but
let me just say this, Amanda, mission accomplished.
oh, thank you.
Mission accomplished. It is inspirational.
Yeah.
Where we were, Jan and I were guest worship leading this past weekend, and in the sermon, the pastor talked about rehearsing the story, meaning how the Israelites, right, would talk about how they were delivered, because there was no cross yet. There was no Jesus in the cross, right? So they would talk about how God delivered. They would tell their kids, and they would rehearse, hey, God delivered us from Egypt. Then we came to the Red Sea. Then God split the Red Sea open, and how to build our own faith and our children's faith, we need examples of faith. And as Jan and I were having dinner with this pastor and his wife, they were then telling us about people in their church that had been physically healed, like documented physical healing. And it was blowing my mind. And I told them, I said, you sitting at this table, this outdoor table, telling me about people that were physically healed, that's inspiring me to my faith. And the pastor's wife, she's so wise. Her name is Jen. She's like, faith comes by hearing. I'm telling you stories now. I'm rehearsing the story. I'm telling you what God has done. And now that builds up my faith. So I want you guys to know that it's really inspirational. And none of us are perfect, but as we see the family, know we're trying to love each other. We do love each other. And yes, we have good days and bad days, but I'm just telling you, if that's your goal, to lift up Christ, to show the love and the supernatural peace that comes from Christ, mission accomplished. Way to go. It's really, really wonderful.
Appreciate that so much.
Yeah, we absolutely appreciate the encouragement. There are times where you wonder, like, is this making a difference? Is this, yeah. And just knowing that, God is in it, and so He's going to be faithful to, to show the light. It's really not us, but God in us, and so that's the goal.
Now, another mom question I have. So your oldest and youngest, what's the age span?
Our oldest just turned 17,
Okay.
and our youngest is 5. So big span there.
Yeah.
So my mom mind goes, okay, how does she do this? Because obviously it's a large family. Do you have do you have a lot of help from your friends? Do you have family in town? Because obviously that's just a lot to keep up with, And so, moms these days, I'm always like, well, how do you do this? Well, how do you do that? How do you make time for this? I saw you guys, was it recently an anniversary or maybe a date night, or I think you were
Date.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, now how does that work?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, with having a lot of teenagers, they can help babysit and that kind of thing. So it's not the same as having all little kids. If they're all 7 kids under the age of 8 or whatever. I have friends who have all little kids, and I feel like that would be a lot more challenging. But a lot of my kids are a little older, more responsible, and so they do help out a lot. My parents are a few hours away, and they'll come and help sometimes. We try to, once or twice a year, get away for at least a weekend and just have some time, the two of us, and recharge and that kind of thing. But regular date nights are really important. When you have a lot of children, we want to make sure that we're slowing down and connecting on a regular basis. So
First of all, your oldest is a natural born, is whatever what are the proper terms? Biological. So Amanda you can't have a 17-year-old daughter. That's not physically possible, right? It's screen here.
Yeah.
So life has been good to you. You guys both look fantastic. You look like you're right out of college. So refreshed.
They're you guys, I always thought, they're the best looking couple, I think.
So we'll wrap this up with you guys.
They're a little busy.
They're a little busy. Honey, would you say a prayer? Because I know, look, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Jan and I see it in our just on our morning walk today, walking the dogs, and we're talking. She's talking about being parenting. She's like, remember what we're dealing with this or this as a parent. It's not that person, or it's not this kid who's maybe acting up right now. It's the enemy. He wants to come in and destroy the lives of our children, come in between us as parents even. That's always something we're dealing with it. So as soon as you guys now, you put yourself out there, right? And you're inspiring people. We know that the enemy doesn't like it. He wants to get up in the inside of it, inside of your family, and anybody watching right now, he wants to come inside of your family, and he wants to steal, kill, and destroy. But I love what one of the pastors, one of the sermons I heard, he was saying, we think of opposites. If I say up, you say down. If I say a light, you'll say dark. He said, if I say God, you say Satan. He goes, wrong. Satan is not the opposite of God. God's the creator. Satan is the created. Satan doesn't have the kind of power that God has. He is not a creator. So I'm just encouraging you, as I'm encouraging Stephen and Amanda, he is the one that is all powerful and loves you and can make the difference in our lives. So let's end, honey. If you would say a prayer for the Stephen and Amanda Miller family, and maybe for all the families watching right now, because as parents, my word, there are some really trying days. And there's somebody watching right now, and you are so concerned with your family and your children. I want you to know God sees you. He loves you. He knows right where you are. And so, honey, would you say a prayer for their family and all the families that are seeing this?
Absolutely. God, you're so good. You're such a gracious and kind Father.
Yes,
and
Lord.
I know, Lord, that when I look into the eyes of my girls, as much as I love them, God, I know that you somehow love them a billion times more. And you give us grace for each day, for each season. And I thank you for Stephen and Amanda, God. What an amazing testimony to your goodness and, Lord, your love for your children. And so, God, I ask that you would bless them today, God, that you would strengthen them. I ask that you would bless them as a couple, Lord, that you would continue just allow them to connect in new and fresh ways. I pray for their family, for each and every kid, God. You know their story, God. You know the ins and outs, you know, strengths and weaknesses, Lord. But I ask that you would bless this family today, that you would continue to just use them in ways, God, they haven't even thought of yet. That you would just continue to open the doors for them to share this amazing story, God, of love and redemption and rescue, God. And just bless them today, Lord. I pray that you would give them physical strength and rest. I can't imagine each day, God, all the challenges they face. So I just bless them in the name of Jesus. And Lord, for anyone that's watching today, God, that is really struggling with, like Greg said, just this amazingly wonderful and difficult job of raising kids. Lord, I pray that you would give hope where there's no hope. Lord, that where there's just frustration, God, that you would bring healing, God. We thank you for our children. We thank you for the blessings they are, God. Continue to give all of us wisdom, Lord. It's such a difficult world right now that we're living in, and so many questions. But God, I pray that you would give us your peace today, God, that you would give us your grace. And as you look upon us with eyes of kindness and grace, Lord, that we would extend that to our kids and just realize, Lord, that we don't have to have it all figured out, but Lord, we can lean into you and trust you on the days that are really hard. So thank you for this time together. Bless this amazing family and continue to give them favor in each and every way that they walk. In Jesus' name, amen.
Stephen and Amanda Miller, thank you for joining us today.
So much.
That was awesome.
Appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.